Hello, this is Shmuel Moshe, and you are listening to the Weekly Parashahcast Season 2, the show where I read the Tanakh and provide my own interpretations of what I think it all means. This week's episode falls during the 8th of Adar, 5785, March 8th, 2025, during the portion for Tetzaveh. We'll be continuing our reading of the book of Samuel, that's Shmuel, chapters 10, 11, and 12. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in. As always, I'd like to remind everybody I'm not a professional scholar, just somebody who wanted to study the Torah and now the Tanakh. Follow along in English on Chabad.org. Let's begin. Chapter 10 of Shmuel, Book 1, Verse 1. And Samuel took the vial of oil and poured it on his head, and kissed him. And he said, Indeed, the Lord has anointed you to be a ruler over his inheritance. When you go from me today, you will find 2 men by Rachel's tomb, in the border of Benjamin, in Zelzah, and they will say to you, The she-asses which you went to seek were found, and your father had abandoned the matter of the she-asses, and is worried about you, saying, What shall I do about my son? And you shall go on forward from there, and you shall come up to the plain of Tabor, and there you will meet 3 men, going up to bow to God to Bethel, one carrying 3 kids, and one carrying 3 loaves of bread, and one carrying an earthenware jug of wine. And they will greet you, and give you 2 cakes of bread, and you shall take them from their hand. Afterwards you shall come to the hill of God, where there are Philistine officers, and it will be that when you come there to the city, you will meet a band of prophets descending from the high place, and before them will be a psaltery, and a drum, and a flute, and a harp, and they will prophesy. And the Spirit of the Lord will pass over you, and you will prophesy with them, and you will be turned into another man. And it will be that when these signs will come to you, do for yourself what your hand will find, for God is with you. And you shall come down before me to Gilgal, and behold, I shall go down to you to offer up burnt offerings, and to slaughter peace offerings. 7 days shall you wait until I come to you, and I shall let you know what you shall do. And it was when he turned his shoulder to go away from Samuel that God gave him another heart, and all these signs came about on that day. And they came there to the hill, and behold, a band of prophets came toward him, and the Spirit of God passed upon him, and he prophesied in their midst. And it was that all who had known him before saw that, behold, he was prophesying with the prophets. And the people said to one another, What is this that has happened to the son of Kish? Is Saul among the prophets? And a man from there answered and said, And who was their father? It therefore became a proverb, Is Saul among the prophets? And he finished prophesying and came to the high place. And Saul's uncle said to him and to his servant, Where did you go? And he said, To seek the she-asses. And when we saw that they were not to be found, we came to Samuel. And Saul's uncle said, Now tell me what Samuel said to you. And Saul said to his uncle, He told us that the she-asses had been found. And the matter of the kingdom of which Samuel had spoken he did not tell him. And Samuel called the people together unto God to Mizpah. And he said to the children of Israel, So said the Lord, God of Israel, I brought Israel up from Egypt, and I delivered you from the hand of the Egyptians, and from the hand of all the kingdoms which oppressed you. And today you have rejected your God, who saves you from all your adversities and your troubles. And you have said to him, But a king you shall set over us. And now stand before the Lord by your tribes and by your thousands. And Samuel brought all the tribes of Israel near, and the tribe of Benjamin was taken. And he brought the tribe of Benjamin near, by its families, and the family of the Matrites was taken, and Saul the son of Kish was taken. And they sought him, but he was not found. And they asked of the Lord further, Has the man come here yet? And the Lord said, Behold, he is hidden among the baggage. And they ran and took him from there. And he stood in the midst of the people, and he was taller than all the people from his shoulder and upward. And Samuel said to all the people, Have you seen the one whom the Lord has chosen? For there is none like him among all the people. And all the people shouted and said, Long live the king! And Samuel told the people the manner of the kingdom, and he wrote it in a book. And he placed it before the Lord. And Samuel sent all the people away, each to his house. And Saul too went to his house, to Gibeah. And the band whose heart God had touched went with him. And unscrupulous men said, How will this one save us? and they despised him and brought him no gift, and he was as one who kept his peace. End of chapter 10. So here we have it, the official appointing of God's chosen king. It is Saul. Here we learn from Samuel, he tells Saul what events are going to happen, what is about to follow. Again, this is pretty standard stuff for the community to know about Samuel. He gives prophecies that actually come true. He tells him that, of course, the situation with the she-asses has been resolved. You're going to come across these men on their way to make a ritual sacrifice and offerings and so on. They're going to greet you. They're going to give you gifts. And from there, you're going to go here, do this, do that. And when you meet a band of prophets, you're going to have a prophecy with them. You're going to start prophesying together. So at that point, the Spirit of the Lord will pass over you, and you will join them in prophecy making or prophecy reading. So once all of these come true, do exactly as comes naturally, because you will find that God is with you at that point. So at this now, he basically gives him a heads up. These are the other steps you need to take. And then after this is all done, Samuel sends him away, and it's already evident that Saul has changed somewhat. Something about him is different now. A spirit has already started to overtake him. His heart, he had a change of heart. But then once he starts doing the prophecy stuff with the others, everybody looking at him is basically saying, is this the same guy? And so this leads to a proverb, is Saul also among the prophets? Because it's a matter of people saying, what is this that happened to the son of Kish? Is Saul also among the prophets? And basically, the guy who's there is looking, and he says, and what is their father's name? So you're naming Kish, but what about the fathers of these other guys who are prophesying? And so that led to the statement, is Saul also among the prophets? It's probably relevant more so in the context. But in any case, once his uncle speaks with him, he says, where'd you go? And it's very interesting because it's his uncle. It's not his father, right? So his uncle is asking stuff, and he says, tell me what Samuel told you. And his response is simply that he told him about the missing she-asses, the missing donkeys. So it's interesting that he kept the other information a secret. This is important because it also tells us there's a little bit of potential intrigue here. Why would he refrain from telling so? Probably because he didn't want the corruption to follow. There is probably going to be a risk to his life or a risk of some sort of corruption with that information. So, nevertheless, Samuel now is doing the big selection day. He shows up and says, gather all of Israel. And he says, okay, you ingrates who've rejected God as your king, it's time for the king that you asked for. Drum roll, please. Will it be the tribe of Benjamin? Tribe of Benjamin, step on up. Okay, and of the tribe of Benjamin, up, the Metrites. Okay, and from that group, it's going to be the family of Kish. It is Saul. So he narrows it down by group until it gets to Saul. Saul is apparently hiding, and they find him, and he stands up, and he really stands out. So this is the correct answer. Everybody says, long live the king, and it looks all nice and good, and Samuel tells everybody what's going on, and he puts it in a book and places it before the Lord, so it makes it official, and then Saul goes home. But it says there are unscrupulous men who don't believe, and how will this one save us? And others bring him presents and so on. They don't. And it says he was as one who kept his peace. So in other words, he was not bothered by these men. Now we move on to chapter 11, verse 1. And Nachash the Ammonite went up and camped against Yabesh Gilead. And all the people of Yabesh Gilead said to Nachash, make a treaty with us, and we shall serve you. And Nachash the Ammonite said to them, on the condition I will make a treaty with you. By gouging out the right eye of every one of you, I shall make it a reproach against all Israel. And the elders of Yabesh said to him, give us 7 days' respite, that we may send messengers throughout the entire border of Israel, and if there is no one to save us, we shall come out to you. And the messengers came to Gibeah of Saul, and spoke the words in the ears of the people. And the people raised their voice and cried. And behold, Saul came after the cattle from the field, and Saul said, what is troubling the people that they cry? And they told him the words of the people Yabesh. And a spirit of God passed over Saul when he heard these words, and his wrath was kindled greatly. And he took a yoke of oxen and cut them into pieces, and sent them throughout the entire border of Israel in the hand of the messengers, saying, whosoever does not go forth after Saul and after Samuel, so shall be done to his oxen. And a fear from the Lord fell upon the people, and they went forth as one man. And he counted them in Bezek, and the children of Israel were 300,000, and the men of Judah 30,000. And they said to the messengers who had come, So shall you say to the people of Yabesh Gilead, Tomorrow by the time the sun is hot you will have deliverance. And the messengers came and told the people of Yabesh, and they rejoiced. And the people of Yabesh said, Tomorrow we shall come out to you, and you may do to us all that is good in your eyes. And it was on the morrow that Saul put the people into 3 contingents, and they came into the midst of the camp during the morning watch, and they smote the Ammonites until the heat of the day. And it was that those remaining scattered, and no 2 of them remained together. And the people said to Samuel, Whosoever says Saul will reign over us, give over the people, and let us put them to death. And Saul said, No man shall be put to death on this day, for today the Lord has wrought deliverance in Israel. And Samuel said to the people, Come, let us go to Gilgal, and renew there the kingdom. And all the people went to Gilgal, and there they made Saul king before the Lord in Gilgal. And there they slaughtered peace offerings before the Lord. And Saul and all the people rejoiced greatly. End of chapter 10. So here now we get right into the goods. How does it go down? Saul has been appointed king, and now it's time to prove his merit. Yabesh Gilead is visited by Nachash the Ammonite, and he says to them, I'm your boss now, and I'm here to conquer you. And they say, make a treaty with us and we'll be your servants. And he says to them, okay, yeah, I'll let you be my servants if every one of you takes out your right eye. Then we'll call it square. And so at this point, they're kind of freaking out, and they say, give us a break for 7 days, and we'll spread the word to everybody, okay? And if there's nobody who's going to get in the way, we will surrender. So he allows it to happen. They get to Gibeah of Saul, so they get to Saul's town, and they tell everybody, and people start freaking out and crying, this is horrible. And Saul comes back from working in the field, and he's like, what's going on here? Why is everybody crying? And they tell him what happened, and it says the Spirit of God came over him, and it has kindled his wrath. So he's mad. He's mad, and this is the fury of God in him. And so he takes a yoke of oxen, cuts them up, right, and then sends them around. He basically shows all of Israel, this is what's going to happen to your oxen if you are not marching with me and with Samuel into this battle. And so as they go forward, it says, he counted them in Bezek, and the children of Israel were 300,000, and the men of Judah 30,000. Now, I am curious about why it specifies how many men of Judah were there, and I do think that maybe this has to do with the fact that there were more than 30,000 Judeans at the time, right? Why are there only 30,000? Isn't Judah more than 30,000 people? They're a pretty sizable tribe, so I think that's fairly interesting. Maybe that's the reason we're getting them singled out here. I don't know for certain. It could also be just proximity to Yabesh Gilead. Whatever the case may be, the people of Judah get named as 30,000. Or is it separately that the children of Israel are 300,000 and then 30 separately are Judah? I don't know why they're distinguished, but, some could make arguments about that. I'm just going to point that out. I find that a little strange, unless it's to say perhaps there should have been more or something. Nevertheless, the messengers arrive and tell the people of Yabesh Gilead, tomorrow by the time it's hot, you are going to have deliverance. And so the people of Yabesh all rejoice because they're going to be saved. And they say, tomorrow we're going to come out and you may do to us whatever is good in your eyes. So they basically say, we're going to surrender tomorrow and you do to us whatever you got to do. And so sure enough, 3 contingents arrive, and in the midst of the camp during the morning watch, they smite the Ammonites. They just come in and totally blow them out. And it's a mission accomplished, and they scatter, and it says no 2 of them remain together. So a total rout. And then Saul says, or rather the people say to Samuel, whosoever says Saul will reign over us with a question mark. This is referring to those unscrupulous men who are like, Saul, what's he going to do? And they didn't give him a gift. So they say, whoever said that, let's put those people to death. And Saul says, no one is being put to death because today God delivered Israel. And so instead, Samuel says, let's go to Gilgal and renew there the kingdom. So let's go ahead and put things back the way they're supposed to be. It's time to restore our kingdom. Let's do this. And all the people go to Gilgal. They make Saul the king formally in front of the Lord. So he was already named king, but now it's the official appointment. And then they make peace offerings before the Lord. Wonderful. Excellent. All good for everybody. So that concludes chapter 11. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to chapter 12, with Saul having now been formally appointed king and the new kingdom established in Gilgal. Samuel chapter 12, verse 1. And Samuel said to all Israel, Behold, I have hearkened to your voice to everything which you have said to me, and I have made a king to reign over you. And now, behold, the king is walking before you, and I have become old and hoary, and my sons are here with you, and I have walked before you from my youth and until this day. Here I am. Bear witness against me before the Lord and before his anointed. Whose ox did I take? Or whose ass did I take? Or whom did I rob? Or whom did I oppress? Or from whose hand did I take a ransom, that I hide my eyes therewith? And I shall restore to you. And they said, You did not rob us, nor did you oppress us, neither did you take anything from anyone's hand. And he said to them, The Lord is a witness against you, and his anointed is witness this day, that you have not found anything in my hand. And they said, He is witness. And Samuel said to the people, It is the Lord who made Moses and Aaron, and who brought your forefathers up from the land of Egypt. And now stand, and I shall reason with you before the Lord, concerning all the righteous acts which he did to you and to your forefathers. When Jacob came to Egypt, and your forefathers cried out to the Lord sent Moses and Aaron, and they brought your forefathers out of Egypt, and they made them dwell in this place. And they forgot the Lord, their God, and he delivered them into the hand of Sisera, the commander of the army of Hazor, and into the hand of the Philistines, and into the hand of the king of Moab, and they waged war with them. And they cried out to the Lord, and said, We have sinned, for we have forsaken the Lord, and have served the Baalim and the Ashtaroth. Now save us from the hand of our enemies, and we shall serve you. And the Lord sent Jerubbaal, and Bedan, and Jephthah, and Samuel, and he saved you from the hand of your enemies round about, and you dwelt in safety. And when you saw that Nahash king of Ammon came upon you, you said to me, No, but a king shall rule over us, when the Lord your God was your king. And now behold the king you have chosen, whom you have requested, and behold, the Lord has appointed a king over you. If you will fear the Lord, and serve him, and hearken to his voice, and you will not rebel against the commandments of the Lord, both you and the king who reigns over you will be after the Lord your God. But if you will not hearken to the voice of the Lord, and you will rebel against the commandments of the Lord's hand will be against you and against your fathers. Even now stand and see this great thing which the Lord will do before your eyes. Is it not wheat harvest today? I shall call to the Lord, and he will send thunder and rain, and you shall know and see that your evil is great, which you have done in the eyes of the Lord, to ask for yourselves a king. And Samuel called to the Lord, and the Lord sent thunder and rain on that day, and all the people greatly feared the Lord and Samuel. And all the people said to Samuel, Pray for your servants to the Lord your God, and let us not die, for we have added to all our sins evil to ask for ourselves a king. And Samuel said to the people, Fear not, you have done all this evil, but do not turn aside from following the Lord, and you shall serve the Lord with all your heart. And you shall not turn aside, for then you would go after vain things which cannot profit or deliver, for they are vain. For the Lord will not forsake his people for his great name's sake, for the Lord has sworn to make your people for himself. I also, far be it from me to sin to the Lord in ceasing to pray for you, but I shall instruct you in the good and proper way. Only fear the Lord, and you shall serve him in truth with all your heart. For see the great things which he has dealt with you. But if you will do wrong, both you and your king will be destroyed. End of chapter 12. Alrighty, so now we are here with the people after the appointment of Saul as king, and Samuel now makes a speech. Now I want to say, atmospherically, tone-wise, this is very similar to how Moses delivers his speeches at the end of the Torah. He is giving a full recap. So first he says, I did what you asked, everything you asked, and I made a king reign over you. And now, look at me. I'm old. My sons are here with you. I've walked before from when I was a kid to now. I've been here. So now this is your chance. Bear witness against me. Whose ox did I take? So he starts listing things that he could have done wrong. And he's asking, this is your chance. If I did you wrong, say so now. And everybody says, you did us no wrong. And he's like, good. Now that we've established this, the Lord is a witness against you, and his anointed is witness this day, that everything is cool between us. I never did anything to you. And now let me tell you a little story. God is the one who sent Moses and Aaron. God is the one who did everything. God is the one who, when Jacob went to Egypt, then sent Moses and Aaron in response to their cries, and then brought everybody out of Egypt and made them dwell here in the Holy Land. And those people, guess what they did? They forgot God. So he handed them over to Sisera and Hazor and all these other enemies over the years that we read about from the different books. And you all cried out and said, oh, we're sorry, we forsaken you, and we did this and we did that we were not supposed to do, boo-hoo, and now help us. And so what did God do? He sent Jerubbaal, Bedan, Yiftach, and Samuel, me, all of us. He sent us to save you, and you were able to dwell in safety. And look, Nachash, king of Ammon, comes up, and what do you say? We want a king too. Even though you already have a king, God, you just insisted on having a king. So now, I'm going to tell you, what you just did is very wrong. If you fear him, though, if you fear God and do not rebel against his commandments, listen to his voice and all these things, then good news, you and your king are going to be fine. But if not, here's your official warning. If you do wrong, you're in trouble. And you will pay the price. And just to prove I'm not just blowing smoke, I'm going to prove that God's mad at you. Because today is the wheat harvest day. I'm going to call out to God, and he's going to send thunder and rain. And you're going to know that your evil is great because of you asking for a king. And sure enough, he says, God, that's your cue, and it starts storming like crazy. And now everybody's really, really scared. And they say, oh, please ask God to protect us and not let us die. And we're so sorry. We really screwed up by asking for a king. And he says, do not fear. You did do all this evil stuff, yes, but don't turn away from God, and it'll be okay. All right? Otherwise, you're going to chase things that aren't real, vain things, which cannot do anything for you. They are in vain. They are vain. They cannot profit or deliver. He will not abandon you. God will not forsake his people for the sake of his great name. He swore to make you his people. And also, me, I'm never going to stop praying for you. I will instruct you on how to do it right. I only say that you fear God. Fear God and serve him in truth with all your heart. See what he's done for you. And if not, you're toast. You and your king. And that is the closing message in this portion, in this chapter. We get a speech from Samuel and a little dialogue with the people, but basically it is reiterating things that Moses have said. It's very interesting. I don't know if I would go so far as to call Samuel the second coming of Moses in terms of like actual power and like the closeness with God, because there's a lot there. There's a lot in terms of like, not since Moses has somebody had this level of immediacy and closeness and be able to, maybe Joshua had some of that power, and Gideon also had a really good ability to call upon miracles. But this guy is able to do them on the spot by calling out to God. Samuel is the real deal. Just like Moses, he is a highest level prophet. And sure enough, that is the circumstances around this. Those are the circumstances. So, not to say he is Moses when I say the second coming. I mean, it's like having another Moses. You don't get that very often, but here we are. And I suppose in a way, it's also comparable how Moses was with Aaron. He says Moses and Aaron, and now you have Samuel and Saul. So it should have been the high priests are the ones that you have as your leadership, but now it's going to be Samuel and the king. So, interesting subject there. Nevertheless, that's it for this week's episode of the Weekly Parashahcast. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed what you had to hear, and I hope you'll tune in next time. Definitely very interesting to see, what the byproduct is. I mean, just as always, God comes through for his people, but this time they ask for a king, and that is going to have consequences. So let's stay tuned until that next session where we learn more about what's going on in the kingdom formed here in Gilgal. Until then, this is Shmuel Moshe with the Weekly Parashahcast Season 2 saying thanks for listening, and as always, Baruch Hashem.